Mr. B.
Welcome to the Social Millennial Podcast. We out here, gang, gang. Thank y'all for pulling up the way that y'all have been pulling up. I can't complain. I've been doing well. How have y'all been doing? Let me know in the comments. For those of y'all listening, we do have a visual component. All right. Head on over to YouTube at Social Millennial Pod. For those of y'all, head on over there, subscribe, hit the bell notification, hit like, let us know what's up in the comments. You feel me? Even if it's just for a few seconds, give us the view. You feel me? For those of y'all watching, what up? I know y'all can see my face. We have an audio component to this. Absolutely head on over there. If you hit most all podcast music platforms, if you hit at Social Millennial Pod or the Social Millennial Podcast, you will find us. All right, y'all. Spotify. I don't think Tidal does podcasts, but if they do, Tidal Podcasts, Pandora, YouTube Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, etc. We are there. For those of y'all who are a little bit more old school, or maybe you're at work and you want to listen on your desktop as you're doing your work, or through your desktop computer at work while you're doing work, absolutely hit the description bar wherever you're at. There's either going to be a clickable word that says homepage ! Or there might be the word homepage with a link under it. For those of y'all on the YouTube watching me, click on one of those and it will immediately take you to the desktop online browser landing page for this podcast, and you can listen to your audio there. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for pulling up, whether you're listening on your commute to work, on your commute back to work. Maybe you've got to go handle some business and you hit some traffic and you decided to come visit your boy. Thank you very much. Maybe y'all are doing your housework, on the week after, you feel me? In your Mr. Link pants, talking about King Kong, King Kong, King Kong. Thank you for pulling up. If y'all are loyal in terms of pulling up at the time that this episode drops, and let me let y'all know, we usually drop on Fridays, Eastern Standard Time, 6 a.m. The episode stays up for forever though, but that's when it becomes available. That's the video and the audio. Absolutely pull up. Thank you so much. Maybe y'all pull up when it drops and y'all listen to it while you're drinking your coffee, reading the paper before work. Thank y'all so much for pulling up. And again, I've got to do the shameless plug because some of y'all ain't going to be here for the whole podcast. You feel me? Some of y'all are just popping in, popping out. But we've got a membership tier. So if y'all want to contribute more than just a like, a follow, a comment, a heart, a thumbs up, a review, or even star reviews, please do so on all of the platforms. Give us the feedback because it definitely helps this show fully develop. You can head on over to Patreon. We've got a membership tier. We have a supporter tier. So if y'all don't want extra content, but y'all just feel like y'all are compelled, someone out there is compelled to keep this project going, this Marcus Pena Presents Media Group going, this vision going and developing, you could hit that supporter tier. You won't get any extra content, but you can show that you are showing some love to my vision here. But if y'all want to give a little bit more out of your pockets, if you so feel inclined to open up your bank for your boy, we have a tier called We Here. You feel me? Because we here. Again, these tiers are, dollars. I am not charging y'all Netflix prices, Disney Plus prices to pull up for the bonus episode. All right. So over there on the We Here tier, you get a second episode of the podcast. Over there at Patreon, it's great to be linked up over there because there's going to be a lot more tiers coming soon. I've got about 2 or 3 shows in development. Some of them podcasts, some of them other things. Got a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I'm going to be putting up, music stuff that I'm going to be putting up, so y'all could see my process, see how I develop these songs. Might even put some polls up there. I'm going to be doing movie reviews. I'm going to be doing watch-alongs, film commentaries, etc. All right, so head on over there because it's going to be developing and blowing up. Thank y'all so much. Again, we're not charging a whole bunch of money. Dollars, single digits. All right, y'all. So if you notice, for those of you listening and watching, you notice that the episode numbers are kind of every other it's because the other episodes over on the bonus side behind the paywall at Patreon. All right, y'all. There will be a link in the description. Probably it will read bonus episode. And you hit the bonus episode and you go see what we're talking about. Now, the bonus episode generally is more spicy, maybe a little bit more controversial, long form, ranty. You know, I get a little loosey goosey with my wording. I kind of let my hair down over there. Sometimes it's wild. Sometimes it's not as wild, but definitely not as tame as the main episodes. You feel me? We're on YouTube. We're trying to have as many people be able to listen to this as possible. So we're not trying to like talk too wild. Language ain't gonna be too brazy, nothing like that. But head on over there for that. All right, y'all. Again, we got all of that out of the way. I'ma still say thank y'all for pulling up. Even if you're not a member, or even if you don't subscribe to the membership over there on Patreon, even if you're not opening your wallet, thank you so much for pulling up. Whether you're listening to this for the first 10 minutes or 2 minutes, or whether you're watching me for the first 2 minutes, again, thank you, because that does a whole lot to help this brand. All right, y'all. So I've had a great week. What's up with y'all? Y'all had a great week? Let me know in the comments. What are y'all going through? What are your ups and your downs for this week? You feel me? We're in April now and time is flying like crazy. I'm in NYC. We're starting to get some decent weather finally. It's been raining crazy. The temps has been up, down, left, right. We had the eclipse. We had the earthquake. I mean, cats and dogs living together, just total hysteria. You feel me? If y'all know where that's from, deep cut, let me know in the comments. We're available. I had a good week. I cannot complain. I had some really great opportunities. Really, got the raise that I was looking for at this one job that I'm doing, my musical director sort of thing gig. I'm very happy about it. I'm very glad for it. Financially, not that it's been too crazy hard, but we're out here. You feel me? COVID hit and the lockdowns happened and jobs shut down, but the landlords did not take compassion on heads out here, because they were still increasing the rent on niggas year over year during COVID. They did not stop them rent increases. So I'm very glad to have that going. I've got a lot of upswings happening, or that have happened during this week. So I'm really like hyped to really go out there and get it done. A lot of upswings. I had a very great colleague and whom I want to count as a friend of mine, who put my name forward for this really cool, or can shape up to be this really cool developmental musical out in Philadelphia. I'm very hype. I'm very stoked. I'm very psyched for what might come of that collaboration in whatever capacity. I'm very glad for that. Thank you very much, Emily. I very much so appreciate it. So just a lot of upswings, a lot of upswings. The new space, it's shaping up. I'm letting y'all know we're getting closer and closer to moving. All hoping that everything works, hoping that it works according to the Lord's will. So a lot of upswings. I'm pretty glad about that. I'm wanting to set up a few other things too. I've said before, I'm trying to work on my 2 EPs for this year. That's my goal. And then I've got a whole other commission that I've got to work on. So musically, I mean, I've been thanging. Haven't been posting on my personal social medias too much. So my follower count hasn't been, skyrocketing. But if y'all want to go do that, please go ahead on over to Marcus Pena Presents on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and please follow, like, share. All right, y'all. But yeah, so let me know how y'all week has been going. Even a good, bad, y'all need any help, y'all need any advice, let me know in the comments. You feel me? I will absolutely respond to the comments. I see all of the comments. Definitely pull up. All right. So let's get to it. We've got about 3 stories this week. Interesting ones. Let's hit it. For my vegans/vegetarians, we've got some bad news for you. This is according to Indy 100. Plants, quote, scream while they're being harvested, new study finds. Check this out, y'all. Vegetarians, we're afraid we've got some news that you're probably not going to like. Plants emit sounds akin to, quote, screams when they're distressed. According to a new study, they allegedly produce clicking noises that humans can't hear without the use of scientific Without the use of scientific equipment, research has found. The research, which was published in Cell back in 2023, showed that plants produce these noises in times of acute distress. Lilac Hadani is an evolutionary biologist at Tel Aviv University. Hadani said, even in a quiet field, there are actually sounds that we don't hear, and those sounds carry information. There are animals that can hear these sounds, so there is the possibility that a lot of acoustic interaction is occurring. Plants interact, quote, plants interact with insects and other animals all the time, and many of these organisms use sound for communication, so it would be very suboptimal for plants to not use sound at all, end quote. The findings show that plants which are distressed have incredibly high-pitched popping noises. While unstressed, plants do not emit noises. The study's definition of distressed included plants that were having their stems cut or if they were dehydrated. However, it's not yet clear how the plants produce the noises. Quote, now that we know that plants do emit sounds, the next question is, who might be listening? Hadani said. Quote, we are currently investigating the responses of other organisms, both animals and plants, to these sounds, and we're also exploring our ability to identify and interpret the sounds in completely natural environments. It comes after a new study suggested that Western industrial diets may be changing the way humans digest plants, as modern diets lack fiber. The way our bodies break down cellulose, found in fruits and vegetables, is changing. I think that last thing I read is from something else because that did not match. Yeah, I think it's probably like an advertisement that didn't fully load. But okay, to my vegans and my vegetarians, enjoy your lifestyle. No one's knocking it. Do what you need to do. There was a point where I was a vegetarian for a long time, for a while, years. But yeah, those who might be on the vegan or vegetarian bandwagon because they feel like they don't want to cause pain to the environment or kill living things, etc., or can't stomach like eating something that once had a face, or eating something that was once something that you can hug and snuggle with, and somehow understand plant life to be a lesser enough life form, like they don't really feel the pain of dying, etc., etc. Evidence is showing year over year that plants, they are living, breathing, some might argue thinking organisms. Plants communicate with each other through their roots. Trees communicate with each other through their roots. Grasses communicate with each other through their roots. They definitely now we are learning that they're emitting sounds given certain circumstances. So right now in distress, or at least we're labeling the sounds that they make when they're being hurt or somehow affected, that they're making these sounds seemingly because they are distressed. So to kind of say that, or reason that plants don't feel anything or are thinking, I guess, is kind of becoming less and less tenable. You feel me? Because, I mean, not only do grasses emit smells of death and so on to signal other grasses and other plants that something's coming. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing, because if a plant can turn itself to face the sun and curve itself in many different ways and locations to get more food, I mean, you could stand to reason that there is some thinking there. Something's going on there. We don't know what level of mind that they might possess. We don't know, or we used to think that it was like an autonomic response, but we're finding more and more that it's not totally an autonomic. They're not totally responding to their world in a very autonomic way, meaning it's mindless and automatic, and it's just what their bodies are doing. Seems like there may be some thoughts going on here. So yeah, for those of y'all who are vegetarian, vegan, I mean, if you are those things because you felt guilty from killing living things, you're definitely killing living things. And I mean, directly. Like, these guys are thinking, they seem to be thinking, they seem to be feeling, because they're reacting to their world in ways that are not like mindless, so to speak, for lack of a better term. So yeah, really, really interesting that we keep finding year over year that more and more of our world is connected to each other. More and more of our world is alive. Like we're just seeming to dispel that idea that humans have held for so many years and decades and so on, centuries, that like intelligent life like stops at a certain tier as you go down the pyramid. And then you just have unintelligent life. It's seeming like that unintelligent life is that line is starting to inch down and down and down into the lower tiers of what we thought were unintelligent life. So yeah, pretty interesting. What do y'all think about that in the comments? Does that make you a little unsettled? That the vegetables that we eat might actually have been living clear and present lives and aware of their lives? It's an interesting thought. Next story, y'all. Okay. Math homework. I know I went through it. Y'all went through it. At all these ages, we go through it. We go to school. We've got to do our homework. I'm finding, though, nowadays that there are a lot of schools adopting homeworkless curriculums. And I think that's kind of cool. You know, allowing school to end when a child leaves the building it sounds pretty freeing. You know, like I did the work that I have to do. I completed what I needed to complete. I digested what I needed to digest. Now I can leave the school building and live my life with my family. You know, it's pretty cool that there are schools that are adopting that now. I wish they did it when I was younger, but it is what it is. You know, people are kind of learning we are learning what is negatively and positively impacting a child's development and brain development and ability to absorb in order to be functional, quote unquote, a functional member of society. So this article, according to Science Alert, math homework can end up doing more harm than good, study shows. Giving pupils math homework can sometimes do more harm than good, according to a new study, particularly when the tasks involved in the work are too complex for kids to complete, even with the help of their parents. The researchers from the University of South Australia and St. Francis Xavier University in Canada interviewed 8 Canadian families asking questions about their experiences with mathematics homework and its effects on the family. All the families had a child in grade 3, typically aged 8 or 9, the age at which the first standardized math tests are introduced in the area where the survey was conducted. Overall, math was talked about as a subject that wasn't liked, and that involved too much extra work. Quote, homework has long been accepted as a practice that reinforces children's learning and improves academic success, says Lisa O'Keefe, a senior lecturer in mathematics education at the University of South Australia. Quote, but when it is too complex for a student to complete, even with parent support, it raises the question as to why it was set as a homework task in the first place. Right. The issues identified by the study included homework being too difficult, even with parental help, as well as the work pushing back bedtimes, crossing over into family time, and causing feelings of inadequacy and frustration. As with many students, approaches to teaching and learning as with many subjects, approaches to teaching and learning mathematics can change over time. Parents who, as children, had been taught how to tackle problems in a different way to their kids was another frustration noted by the researchers. Right, because when you start switching things up, I remember when Common Core was out, it was wild. It was this roundabout way to solve simple problems. And it was like, why are we doing this when all we have to do is borrow numbers and cross out other numbers and get to the answer that you need? Why do we have to draw circles? Why do we have to do Venn diagrams? Like, none of that really makes sense and became this long drawn out way to get to simple answers. So you had kids now coming to parents with this new way that they then have to teach their parents how to do how to do it, or the parents have to do the research in order to find out how to solve simple math, addition, multiplication, division problems. It's like, dude, what in the world? Talk about a disconnect. Quote, like many things, mathematics teaching has evolved over time, says O'Keefe. Quote, but when parents realize that their tried and true methods are different to those which their children are learning, it can be hard to adapt. And this can add undue pressure, unquote. This can lead to, quote, negativity across generations, quote, the researchers say. Mothers in the study tended to be mostly responsible for helping with the homework. And when they also find the assignments tough, that can reinforce negative stereotypes about mathematics not being a subject in which girls, quote, naturally excel, according to the study. That's interesting. That's an interesting sort of finding. These negative stereotypes can have lasting impacts on their grades and career aspirations, other studies show. Of course, the coronavirus pandemic is still fresh in everyone's minds, a time when children were often asked to study at home and parents often had to help out when it came to completing assignments. While this study uses a small sample of participants, the researchers say its findings match common narratives in education. They want to see more done to make sure math homework is set in an appropriate way and that it doesn't end up putting youngsters off the subject at an early age. I don't think that, my opinion, I don't really think that there's a way that you could make mathematics like ubiquitously loved by everyone. I think it's 100% at the end of the day a personality thing. It's 100% at the end of the day brain wiring, whether you're good at math or whether you kind of Rain Man, see all the numbers behind the numbers, or beautiful minded. You know what I'm saying? Some people are just wired for mathematics. Other people are not. Other people, their intelligences lie in their physicality, and they're wired, and the neurological system's wired a certain kind of way where their depth perception is great, their aim is great, I'm forgetting this word. Their ability to judge their location in space is great, which is probably depth perception, but and they're good. They're people that are they're great at sports. They're great at intellectualizing movement paths and predicting motion and so on and so forth. There's different kinds of intelligences. So I don't think pursuing, I think pursuing a way to make mathematics ubiquitously liked is a fool's errand. That will never happen. But in terms of, math homework maybe being a thing, or homework being a thing for most kids that will exist for the foreseeable future, it makes sense to want to make it that it doesn't eat into family time. But let me say this too. That's another sort of contradiction to me, because if you're going to give homework, it's going to eat into family time. It's almost on its face by definition going to do that, because it's work at home. So you come home from school. Do they want you to be able to finish your homework very quickly? Is that what it is? Is the amount, I'm sure there are studies on this where the amount of homework negatively or positively affected the students' recollection the next day, or positively or negatively affected their sleep schedules, etc. Like they said here, then it would push sleeping times late because he can't figure out his homework. He's getting stressed out. I feel like maybe you could make the homework easier, but if homework is meant to exercise what you did during that day and to challenge a child's mind after the hours of school time, there's going to be points where it's going to be difficult. So it's do we give students less challenging homework and only challenge them when they're in the classroom? That's interesting, because then how are we going to build that character of them being able to rise to challenges when they're not with their teachers, when they're not basically being coddled, or not a person who's knowledgeable isn't looking over their shoulder. They do have to learn to figure it out on their own, and how to process that emotionally and mentally when they feel like they're failing and they don't see the answer to the problem. So that's a thing. But I do think that a study like this, to me, shows, even though it's a small sample size and they could probably do a larger sample size and they might get different results, but anecdotally, a study like this seems to point, to me, in my opinion, to the fact that one, kids are soft these days. Two, if we advance in our ability, in our sort of calculative ability as humans, our maths evolve, and our predecessors, our parents, didn't get that kind of math, it would inevitably be a problem. It would inevitably create some kind of issue at home and stress out a student. Do we want to stress out students when they're outside of school, or do we want them to engage with school as something that is not only necessary, but something that is helpful, something that can bring joy, something that can bring camaraderie, something that can build character? Because at the end of the day, I would, if I was a principal or I was a chancellor or I was, Department of Education head, I would kind of want schooling or quote unquote education to be an enjoyable experience, an enjoyable formative experience, an enjoyable experience. I would want it that way because these are the child's formative years, and teachers really have the children in these formative years that they're forging memories, forging core memories, developing their beliefs. And on more often than not, school teachers are the ones that are basically raising these kids, because these students, at least young students, because the children spend more time at school than they do with their parents at home with their families. So if they're going to get their core values and their work ethic, etc., from what they're exposed to the most. And they're exposed to their school teachers the most. They're exposed to their classmates the most. They're exposed to their school culture the most. So I would kind of want it to be that way. I would kind of want it to be a place of enjoyment, a place of self-discovery, a place of fun, actually. Because learning things through joy, learning things through happiness, I feel like it sticks more than learning things through pain and struggle and stress and strife. Now, I don't think that schooling can be 100% stress-free place, because if we're going to develop young students into quote unquote productive members of society or help to build their character, they will need to be challenged. They will need to be tested. They will need to be tried through the fire so that they can come out gold. But just instead of deciding to beat them down mentally and emotionally, instead of trying to cut into their time with their family and their growth in that area, like, the faders can develop on that side, the sliders. Instead of trying to make school invade the home, we should make the home invade the school, if that makes sense. It should be the other way around. A lot of parental involvement, leaning on studies, doing what works, allowing the curriculum, for the parents who want to be that involved, allowing them to have a say a little bit in the curriculum, allowing the students to have a say in the curriculum too, in some of the parts of the curriculum, and how things get done would be kind of cool. I mean, yes, these are children, or for the younger students, these are younger students, high school, these are older students, but allowing them to feel a sense of attachment to the way that they're being taught, the methodology with which they're being taught, lends itself to a less stressful environment, or it has the ability to. Not everybody's going to want the same things, and people will still be kind of unhappy or come up short because you're trying to please as many people as possible, trying to please the multitude over the majority over the minority. But deciding to try, I think it goes a long way to allowing younger students to feel valued for who they are as people, as small people, and not just being dictated to. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. We're gonna jump to the next one. All right, I'm getting through these things fast. Jeez. Now we're talking about Disney. We're in NYC, y'all. I know y'all heard that horn honk. Jeez Louise. I can't wait. In the new location, we are not going to be hearing all of this. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. People could still be out here acting out of character. Anyway, people can surprise you. We're talking about Disney as a company, and basically how they kind of peed the bed, kind of, They had these, for those who don't know, for those who don't follow, they had basically money-making intellectual properties in the palm of their hand. They did pay money, but they had these money-making IPs in the palm of their hand in the form of Marvel and in the form of Star Wars, right? Billions of dollars that they spent. And slowly but surely putting these two intellectual properties through, or conforming them to the culture and the machinery that is the Disney brand, the Disney industrial complex. Disney has peed the bed. And I should say this newer generation of Disney has peed the bed. I mean, Bob Chapek tried, failed. They tried to jump into streaming, thinking that their two cash cow, or what are supposed to be their cash cow IPs, would sell the Disney Plus streaming service. That didn't happen. Disney Plus ended up becoming basically a money trap, a money pit. Disney as a corporation has been bleeding money, built to the tune of billions of dollars, trying to make Disney Plus profitable. It has yet to be profitable. And so here we are now. You know, part of this is because their CEO, Bob Iger, got them to this place. Another part of it is because Bob Chapek did. But behind the scenes, in terms of corporate espionage stuff going on, corporate bureaucratic things happening, it was really Bob Iger the entire time, because where it was that Bob Chapek was supposed to be running things, Bob Iger, in his contract, in the stipulation of him leaving, he still retained a lot of control and a lot of say-so in the company, even though he was not publicly the face of the public-facing CEO of the company. Then they threw Bob Chapek under the bus, even though Bob Iger was the one that had some of this say to greenlight what Chapek was doing. Threw him under the bus, told Bob Iger to come back again and be the guy again. And it still goes down the drain. You know, we get Ant-Man Quantumania that bombed in the box office. We get Captain Marvel that bombed in the box office. Both of those movies represented hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of losses for Disney. Star Wars properties are failing. They're not bringing the draw. And how you could tell with Star Wars as an intellectual property, the metric is really in the merchandising. They focused a whole lot on, after the sequel trilogy was not very well received by the fans, but still made them a lot of money just off of the name alone. They focused on Disney Plus and doing a whole lot of Star Wars content, and people were just not tuning in. It soured the fans even more, and the big metric is merchandise sales. A lot of Star Wars merchandise has not sold. They wasted a lot of money in merchandise, thinking that it was going to continue selling as an engine for the merchandise that Star Wars had been before Disney bought it. A lot of what Star Wars is as an intellectual property, a lot of that draw in terms of net of worth of the intellectual property came from the amount of merchandise that it was selling year over year, even though movies weren't being made. You know, you had shows, I think it was consistently continuing to be profitable on the merchandise side. And part of that is because George Lucas, Spielberg, I think Spielberg produced one, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but Lucas and the studio were very liberal with licensing. And off that licensing, they were able to get a lot of money in video games licensing, in books, and extending the universe beyond the movies. There were a lot of books that were written. I've read a few of them. They were good, extending the lore, building out the lore outside of the films, and toys sold a whole lot. I mean, even now, there are original Star Wars toys that are worth a lot of money. So that was really that metric, to show that worth of that IP and how much money it could bring, how much dollar bills it meant for Disney as a corporation. So they got it from George Lucas, and here we go. Here we are now. They put it through the machine, through the ringer, just churn out, just like Marvel, churn out. And over time, it became, the quality dipped as the quantity went up, because we want to serve the people more and more Star Wars so that we can hopefully translate all of this content into money, giving the people what they quote unquote wanted, but they didn't really want it. Giving the people what they wanted, some of them did want, but because we're churning it out so much, we start to really not care about the continuity. We start to falter in the acting, start to falter in the writing. We're not drafting as many times as we should be with these scripts for the movies and for the series. That goes for Marvel and for Star Wars. And here we are now. Marvel is helter skelter. The continuity has been messed up, irreparable. I think in order to repair the continuity, they would need to reset everything, figure out a way to reset it. They should have never did multiverse, and they broke everything. They broke sort of the solidness of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Kevin Feige succeeded in getting that Infinity Saga going, and I think he just said, okay, we did it. I accomplished it. Okay, do what y'all want, Story Group. And, Story Group is populated by people who don't care about the comics, people who don't care about the stories, people who don't have a vested interest or share a kinship with these characters in terms of being part of their childhoods. You just kind of got a whole bunch of Story Group people who got hired, get paid good money to do what they do, and kind of see these characters as action figures that they could just throw against each other, and whatever sticks as a story, put it out. We don't care what relates to what. We don't care what rewrites what. It's just, these are, at the end of the day, these Story Group people seem to treat these characters and this universe, this IP, like, oh, these are just fictitious characters anyway. We could do whatever we want with it, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And you lose generations of fan bases like that because they grew up on these characters. And a lot of people will say, and will continue to this day, even Marvel, even Disney as a corporation, will allow their people to still vilify the fan base with the consumers with which they need to retain in order for the projects to be profitable. They will continue to put them down. When they change certain things, especially things that should not have ever been changed, a lot of blasphemous things, according to those of us who are invested in these characters and grew up with these characters. We're upset when new writers come onto the comics and change the character around and do nonsense. So it isn't, a lot of people will go, oh, it's because you're misogynist, or, oh, it's because you're this, oh, it's because you're that, oh, it's because you're racist. We're upset when they write these characters crazy. So imagine how upset we're going to be when you do live action crazy. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who are not racially prejudiced, and that's the reason why they don't like certain changes. I'm not saying that there aren't certain people out there who are prejudiced against women, and that's why they're upset about making certain changes. But the majority are not. And so when you get Story Group people who just really don't care, you get a dulling of the quality of the work. Especially if the point is that we're setting out to accomplish is to continue a shared cinematic universe. These movies are supposed to be connected to each other. They're all supposed to take place in the same world. So when you break that and then just keep trucking along like nothing's broken, you're going to see a dip in viewership. You're going to see a dip in subscribership. You're going to see a dip in the fan base, a dip in the how do you say, in the merchandise sales. Same thing goes for Star Wars. That's what's been going on. They've been rewriting things. The writers of these shows are not necessarily, and the showrunners are not necessarily going back and looking at what has come before so that they don't step on the toes of those other stories. Instead, they go, okay, we're just going to do our story. And then after the fact, we find out, oh, well, but if this character was doing this at this time, then how could they have been doing that at that time? How could this other thing have happened? It's because these showrunners, these Story Group people, these writers, they don't really, and the directors, they don't really watch the other content. They don't really digest they don't digest the work or the IP in totality to be able to understand how they're supposed to go about producing their installment to further the universe. And so when you get that dip in quality, you get less returns. So here we go. According to NBC News, Bob Iger says Disney's mission is to entertain, not send messages. So Bob Iger, after they had this whole thing where they were voting seeing if they were going to vote these two guys into the board who campaigned specifically to try to right the ship of Disney. Those two guys ended up losing the vote. So they're not on the board. Bob Iger is still where he's at as CEO. Everything is going business as usual. But I do see that at this point, Bob Iger has to double down on the idea that Disney needs to pull back from putting messaging, heavy-handed messaging into its works. They seem to be very, very messaging first as opposed to story first, character first. And that's also part of what has been slowly eroding all of their IPs. I mean, it has even eroded their films. So their films aren't doing as well because they seem to be writing or presenting their characters messaging first. And in some ways, I think I've said it in another episode, in some ways, creating content in that kind of way contributes to the problem of stereotyping, contributes to the problem of prejudices, because you relegate your characters to just being this one or representing or being this one monolith. So when you do that, it's very easy to create and contribute to the stereotyping of any given set of people, whether it be Asians, whether it be Latinos, whether it be LGBTQ individuals, IA individuals plus. It's a slippery slope. It's a very thin, fine line when you decide to craft your content messaging first. You know what I'm saying? Instead of story first, character driven first, and then allow the messaging to exist as a facet of the character. Instead of making the character, making the thing, the messaging, the whole identity of your characters. If y'all can follow me. You generally don't want to do that. I mean, there's certain places that you can. But when you're dealing with Disney putting out multiple things, Disney putting out multiple in-house films, animated films, and you're dealing with Marvel, you're dealing with all this IP, and you begin to become messaging forward, messaging first, and then conform the character to the messaging, make the make the character's identity the messaging. You begin to erode, or you have to change those existing characters fundamentally. And the audience picks up on that. And it's like, why would this guy react this way after he's gone through all of this other things in these other films? Because Star Wars and Marvel are cinematic universes unto themselves. So you have that to fall back on, where you already have certain characterizations already established. So then when you get these characters in newer or other directors' hands and other writers' hands and other story groups' hands, who are then messaging first, it gives a justification to them that their characters act in the way that they act because they're the ones writing them messaging first. But to the fans who have dealt with these established characters and their characterizations are very defined, you have now created sort of bastardized versions. You've created your own versions of these characters. They're not the same characters that exist in the IP. You've essentially created your own universe. And that's what happens. You lose a lot of your consumers like that. Anyway, let me get to this. I don't want this to be, I don't want to keep y'all here too long. All right. So this is Bob Iger. This is in an interview. In an interview with CNBC, the CEO of the entertainment giant said the company is focused on capturing broad, if diverse, audiences. So this is great because he needs to double down on the idea that we need to focus on quality over quantity. So we've already seen that Disney has started to axe projects, discontinue projects that have been in development, and other projects that they're going to go forward with. That's with Marvel, Star Wars, and their animated stuff, their in-house content. The ones that they're going to keep, they sort of circled the wagons. They used the strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike, the actor strike, to kind of circle the wagons as well, give them an opportunity to slow down and see what's happening, why are things failing, what do we need to continue, and where can we trim the fat? Because they also lost billions of dollars over the past 5 years, 5-6 years. So him doubling down after that vote that happened with the board is what he needs to do now, because one, he needs to get consumers back to be interested in what Disney's going to try to do. In him saying that we need to get back to doing entertainment to do entertainment. And if our stuff is not entertaining the people, then we need to take a look at what we're doing, why we're doing it, what our methodologies are. Because if it's not entertaining the people aren't consuming it, the investors are not making money. At the end of the day, that's what it has to be. You have the number crunchers, you have the artists who are making the product to sell, the sellers who sell the product, the number crunchers who are going to deal with the profits and the expenditures. And the investors are not benefiting here. So The article reads, Disney CEO Bob Iger said his company is not interested in sending messages in its movies and TV shows. In an interview with CNBC on Thursday morning, Iger said Disney's number one mission is to capture broad, if diverse, audiences. That's a good balance, the way that he said that. Because he's like trying to be political and not saying like, because he's not trying to be misconstrued or not, because he knows that the left and the right are all going to jump on what he's saying. And they're going to see negative things. So if he says broad, if not diverse, then he's trying to get both. He's trying to say we're trying to find a middle ground so everybody is satisfied. That's what we're attempting. Quote, infusing messaging is not what we're up to, he said. Quote, we need to be entertaining. Iger was speaking one day after his leadership received a vote of confidence from stakeholders in the face of an aggressive activist shareholder campaign led by billionaire Nelson Peltz, who had taken the company to task for its lackluster stock performance in recent years. And he was right. He wasn't wrong. Peltz had also hit out at the company in an interview with the Financial Times for his having dabbled in, quote, woke commentary. Quote, he goes, why do I have to have a Marvel that's all women? Peltz asked. Quote, not that I have anything against women, but why do I have to do that? Question mark. Why can't I have Marvels that are both? In comments Peltz made about the blockbuster Marvel film, quote, Black Panther, he asks, why do I need an all black cast? I'm gonna talk on that just a little bit. That sentiment has also been echoed by Elon Musk. We saw all of that about April Fool's Day. Bob Iger said Musk's comments have no relevance. I think that's it, because then it's going to go, even with that victory, Iger still faces the daunting task of returning Disney to sustained growth after a decade of lackluster performance, at least when measured by its share price, which is about $119, has not changed much from those levels seen 10 years ago. All right, and that's as far as I'm going to go with it. It gives a bunch of other information, but that's basically what I want to convey here with this article. The idea of Peltz saying those things, of course, left, maybe certain kinds of sensibilities, mental sensibilities, emotional sensibilities, will look at that and just label a person like, oh, you must be misogynist. Oh, you must be prejudiced against black people. How I see it, yes, he's an old white man. Yes, it could be all of those things. But on its face, without knowing the man, without knowing anything about him, where he came from, without having a sit down with him, just those words on its face, that sentiment on its face, to me is not that prejudiced. When we're talking about entertainment, when we're talking about attempting, because that's what Disney tries to do, attempting to appeal to the widest audience possible, why is it with Disney's entertainment and their IPs, why is it that we're gonna decide to create a movement to favor one side at the expense of the other and one side over the other, when our whole goal is to grow the stock price? Why would we then cut out a whole section of our consumer base and essentially send them the messaging that this is not for you? It would then make sense why Disney's lost so much money, lost so much profits. Would make sense, because you're like I said, you're cutting out and you're niching your content when you're supposed to be broadening your content. It's okay to make some content. I think it's fine to make some content that is very niche. You know what I'm saying? But you should have your content that's niche, and then your content that is broad, and the content that is broad and appealing to many and hitting a lot of different demographics that are going to enjoy it, a lot of different sensibilities that are all going to enjoy it together in unity. That's where you're going to make your profits. So the profits from those gigantic tentpoles, as for lack of a better term, will then fund the niche stuff. And you could do the niche things. You know, we're not saying that I mean, at least I'm not saying that there's not a place for an all-female Young Avengers or a female-dominating Young Avengers. There's not necessarily a place for Black Panther, and it makes sense that Black Panther would be an all-black cast because our hero comes from Africa. I'm not saying that there's not a place for that and there's not reasons for that. But there's not reasons for that. It is also true that can be considered niche content. And what was great when Black Panther 1 came out is that they didn't treat it like niche content, served it out. Our communities went, ate it up. It made decent money. And that's great. And that's how you do it. You introduce the nicheness to the general public. Let the general public decide what they want. Let the market decide that. So people come out, support it. Then okay, we're not gonna keep this as niche content. We're gonna continue to support this as a tentpole, like that. Instead of going, oh, we put this niche thing out already, no one liked it. Let's continue to support that and just keep spending millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on it and allow it to continue to fail. And then as it continues to fail, when no one came to support it, or not enough people came to support it from the beginning, we're just going to say, oh, we lost all of that money because men are misogynists and men hate women. Nah, that doesn't make sense. That's short-sighted, and kind of trying to cover your ass a little bit, because you continue to put hundreds of millions of dollars into projects that no one asked for. And you'll know what people are asking for with how much money that they spend on it. Whether they come in butts and seats, whether they come in and the viewership and the ratings on Disney Plus are showing that people are gravitating towards these things. Put money into those things that they're gravitating towards. Give them more of that. Or develop it into other areas so that audience could then go to this other thing and hop onto this next thing and hop onto this next thing. Because, too much of a good thing and oversaturation isn't really great anyway. So instead of just doing a Doctor Strange 7, you figure out creatively how to then take that audience and put them over here, have them migrate over to this other thing, this other new thing, because people like newness. Anyway, that's my thought process on that. Let me know what y'all think on the comments. Give me that commentary. If y'all disagree with me, let me know. You disagree with me. You think it's bigoted, or it's what I'm saying is somehow hyper prejudiced or whatever. Let me know. I'd like to hear other responses, whether they're agreeing or disagreeing. All right. Thank y'all so much. That is our third story, our last story. I'm very glad to be here to be sharing this stuff that interests me this week. If you've made it this far in the podcast, thank you so much. Again, I don't think I said this at the top, and I need to add this into my opening. We do have merch. So if you head down in the description, wherever you're at, there will be a link for our merch. Enjoy that. We have shirts, everything from onesies to cups to phone cases, etc., banners, paintings, all kinds of things. With our logo on it, it definitely helps the podcast. And absolutely, pull up, y'all. Pull up to the socials at Social Millennial Podcast on IG and on Facebook. We have a good time over there. Throw up that follower count. Throw up those likes. That IG, that Social Millennial Podcast IG is a very great meme dump. We're having a good time over there. Thank y'all so much for this time, and I hope y'all have a wonderful week. All right, y'all, keep on winning, and if y'all lose a little bit, don't worry, you're gonna win some more. All right, deuces.